I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, trying to piece together how everything fell apart so fast. My name's Jake, and for the last couple of years I was pretty damn happy with my fiancée, Lisa. We had what most people would call a perfect relationship, at least on the surface. She was beautiful, confident, and seemed fiercely committed to us. We had plans, wedding date set, friends already talking about the big day. Honestly, I thought I'd finally found my forever. But all that changed when the suspicious absences started. Lisa was always busy with work, but she'd come home late, looking guilty and brushing it off like I was crazy for doubting her. I'd see her sneaking her phone away whenever I looked, or she'd get defensive if I asked about her whereabouts. She'd say I was paranoid, insecure, that she was faithful, and I believed her because I wanted to. I clung to that hope, convinced she loved me, and that maybe I was just overthinking it. Then came the little things. Her phone started ringing at odd hours and she'd hide it quickly. The late nights grew more frequent. I even caught her deleting messages. One small thing, but it set off a wave of unease I couldn't shake. I'd ask her where she'd been, what she was doing, and she'd roll her eyes, call me jealous or paranoid. That bitchy attitude she'd sometimes throw at me when I questioned her only made me more suspicious. And I hate to admit it now, but I kept making excuses for her. Maybe she was stressed, maybe she was just tired. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. One night I decided to check her phone while she was in the shower. Stupid move, maybe, but I couldn't take it anymore. Scrolling through her messages, I saw a string of texts that made my stomach drop. They weren't just friendly. They were flirty, suggestive, and downright dirty. Her conversations with our mutual friend, Mark, were filled with talk about how good sex with him was and how she couldn't wait to see him again. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My wife, my future wife, was cheating on me with Mark right under my nose. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and absolute heartbreak. I had trusted her blindly. We had plans, a life together. And she was out there lying to my face, sneaking around with someone I considered a friend. That night, everything inside me broke. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know how. I just knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay anymore. The truth was staring me in the face, and I had to face it. The next day, I couldn't keep it in. I knew I had to talk to her, confront her head on. I waited until she got home from work, my stomach twisting in knots. She walked in, still dressed in that confident, bitchy attitude she always wore when she thought she was in control. I was just staring at her, feeling every ounce of betrayal boil inside me. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me, raising an eyebrow like I was bothering her or wasting her time. "What about?" She shot back, smirking, but I saw that flicker of annoyance in her eyes. I pulled out her phone and I showed her the messages. Her face immediately changed. Her eyes widened, and she looked like she'd been caught in a trap. "That's not what it looks like," she spat, trying to brush it off. "You're just overreacting. It's nothing, just some stupid conversations, nothing serious." But I wasn't buying it, not anymore. Those texts didn't lie. They depicted a different woman, her, the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew. Her reaction was classic: denial, anger, blame shifting. She told me I was paranoid, that I was insecure, that I was trying to ruin what we had. She said she was only talking to Mark because she was stressed, like that's some kind of justification for cheating. She kept lying, saying it was just sex, and it didn't mean anything, even though I could see right through her. She looked me in the eye and said she loved me, that I was the only one she cared about. That was a lie. I could see it, smell it, feel it in my bones. I was devastated. I don't even remember how long we argued. It was hours of her trying to convince me she was innocent, that I was overreacting, that everything was fine. But her words just felt hollow. I could see the truth behind her eyes, her guilt, her shame, her contempt for me. And all I could think about was how she had been lying for weeks, maybe longer. About where she was, who she was with, what she was doing. It hit me like a freight train. I had trusted her completely, and she'd been betraying me every step of the way. The worst part was feeling that intense pain of knowing she'd been lying to my face, playing me for a fool. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. I didn't just want to end the relationship. No, I wanted to make her feel what I was feeling. I wanted her to realize how much she'd hurt me. And I knew deep down I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without consequences. After that confrontation, I didn't sleep much. My mind kept racing, thinking about everything she'd said, everything she'd done, and how I was supposed to go on like nothing had happened. But I knew I couldn't just forget it. She was a liar, a cheater, and now I couldn't trust her anymore. Trust, what a fragile thing, and she had shattered it completely. I felt like I was walking around with a fog clouding my head, unsure of what was real anymore. In the days that followed, I started noticing more things. Small stuff at first. She'd be secretive about her phone, hiding it when I entered the room. She'd get defensive if I looked at her too closely or asked questions about where she'd been. Her excuses got more ridiculous, too. She'd say she was late at work, then I'd find out she'd gone out with friends or worse, with Mark. I even caught her in little lies about where she went after work. That's when I started to think about revenge, not just ending it but making her regret ever betraying me. One night, I followed her when she said she was working late, just to see where she really went. And what I saw made me want to scream. She was at Mark's apartment, kissing him in the hallway. Their hands were all over each other. I saw her laugh at something he said, her face completely different than the girl I'd been with. That bitchy attitude, her lies, her fake innocence. She was nothing like the woman I married. She was a different person with him, and it broke me even further. I stood there frozen, watching the woman I loved betray me in the worst way possible. My fists clenched, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I wanted to storm in, yell at her, expose her. But I knew I needed to think this through. If I was going to do something, it had to be right. I couldn't just lash out with anger. They'd say I was acting impulsively, but honestly my mind was already scheming. How could I make her pay for this? How could I make her see how much she'd screwed up? That's when I started planning. I didn't want to just walk away, not after what she'd done. I wanted her to feel the pain, regret, and betrayal the way I did. I started gathering evidence, photos, videos, anything I could use. I'd seen enough to know that exposing her publicly would be the ultimate blow, but I also wanted her to understand I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. This wasn't just about trust, it was about justice. And I was going to make sure she paid for her lies, her betrayal, her cheating. Every day I felt more energized, more determined. I wasn't just going to walk out the door and forget her. No, I was about to turn this entire nightmare into something she'd never forget. I had to do it for me, for my dignity. Because if I didn't, I knew I'd never be able to look at myself in the mirror again. Over the next week, I threw myself into gathering everything I needed. I wasn't just angry, I was calculating. I set up discreet cameras in the house, especially around her favorite spots, her bedroom, the living room, Mark's apartment when I could. I wanted irrefutable proof. I started saving all the messages, taking screenshots, and even secretly recording some of her phone calls. Every moment she thought I wasn't paying attention, I was watching her fall deeper into her betrayal. It was sickening, really, seeing her in her natural element, flirtatious, careless, full of lies. The thing that disturbed me most was her attitude. She was so bitchy when denying everything face to face, but behind the scenes she was a different person. She was confident, shameless, and she thought she could get away with it. She believed she was untouchable. That's what made me angrier, her arrogance. Her sense of entitlement, as if I was just some fool who'd never find out. One night I found her planning her next late night with Mark on her phone. The messages were explicit, full of promises for sex, laughter at how she'd get away with it, even plans for what she'd wear. I stared at the screen, feeling the rage bubble up inside me. That was when I knew I had enough. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see or hear the truth anymore. I couldn't keep trusting her, not after she'd turned into this person. A liar, a cheat, a user. I spent hours thinking about my next move. I wanted to hurt her, but I also wanted her to feel truly humiliated. I wanted her to see that her lies had consequences, that I wasn't some naive fool who could be played for a fool forever. I decided to wait until I had everything, proof, a plan, and a moment when she wouldn't expect it. I knew she'd try to deny, spin, and manipulate, but I was ready. This wasn't just about ending the relationship. It was about making her understand she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back. From the day I finally decided to confront her with everything, I felt a strange mix of numbness and resolve. I didn't want her to see me as weak or broken. I wanted her to see that I was done being a patsy. I was going to give her the truth, raw and unfiltered, and see how she'd react. I was going to expose her lies, her cheating, and her attitude. She thought she could get away with everything because she was bitchy and manipulative, but I was done playing her game. This was going to be her wake-up call, a brutal one made of her own lies and betrayals. And when I finally did it, I knew my life would change forever. The day I planned to confront her, I felt like I was walking into a storm. My hands were trembling, but my mind was clear. This was the moment she'd regret everything she'd done. I had everything laid out, screenshots, recordings, the evidence of her planning her next move with Mark. I sat her down in the living room, the quiet before the storm. She looked at me with that snarky smile, like she thought I was bluffing or that I'd never actually do it. I didn't waste any time. I pulled out my phone and started playing the recordings, showing her the messages and pointing out every lie she'd told. Her face turned red, then pale. She tried to deny everything, but I cut her off. I told her I knew about her affair with Mark, that I had the proof, that I'd been watching her for weeks now. Her bitchy attitude immediately switched to panic. She started shouting, calling me crazy, accusing me of stalking her, of trying to ruin her. But I wasn't done. I wanted her to understand what she'd lost, so I played the recordings of her planning her secret visits, her explicit messages, her laughter at how she was getting away with it. I told her I was done trusting her, done pretending that her lies didn't cut me deep. Her eyes welled with tears, but she kept denying it, trying to spin her way out of the truth. That's when I told her I was leaving her, not just for the cheating, but for the way she treated me, like I was nothing, like I was a fool. I told her I'd never forgive her for betraying me with someone I called my friend. The look on her face was priceless, shock, anger, a hint of desperation. She yelled, saying she was sorry, that she loved me, that she'd change. But I wasn't buying it. I knew her game. I'd seen enough. I packed a bag that night, not because I had decided to walk away just yet, but because I knew I needed space. Space to breathe, to think, and to figure out what I really wanted. I looked at her one last time, her tears and her smirk, and I knew I'd never forget this. I'd never forget how she thought she could cheat, lie, and manipulate her way through our life together. I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with heartbreak. I'd exposed her true face, and it wasn't pretty. Now, I just had to decide what came next. In the days that followed, everything started to settle into a new kind of silence. I moved out of the apartment we shared, leaving behind the memories that had once felt so solid. It wasn't easy. I'd been blindsided, humiliated, and broken, but at the same time, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe without the weight of her lies pressing down on me. I realized that trust, once shattered this badly, is almost impossible to rebuild. And honestly, I don't think I wanted to try anymore. Looking back, I see how blind I'd been. I gave her my everything, and she spat on it on me. All those signs I ignored, the excuses I made, that was my fault for not seeing the truth sooner. But I also learned something important. Sometimes people reveal their true colors when you least expect it. And the heartbreak, the betrayal, it all hurts like hell, but it's also a wake-up call. You can't keep living in denial, pretending that someone's true motives are different from what they really are. Now, I focus on myself. I've started therapy to deal with the emotional fallout of all this. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about healing. I can't say I'll ever fully trust again, not the way I used to, but I am learning to value myself more. I see how dangerous it is to ignore red flags, how fragile loyalty is, and how betrayal can change everything in an instant. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's that you should never stay in a relationship where you feel you're being lied to or taken for granted. Don't be afraid to face the truth, even if it hurts. Because in the end, the pain of betrayal is better than living in a lie. And no matter how much it feels like the world is falling apart at first, it's possible to pick up the pieces and rebuild, stronger, wiser, and more aware of what you deserve. I don't regret exposing her because I needed that closure. I needed to see her for who she truly was, and I needed her to see that I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. I hope that someday she'll realize what she lost, but honestly, I don't care anymore. I'm done chasing illusions. I've got a new perspective now, one that's sharper, tougher, and more real. And that's how I'm going to move forward.